The Place to Be podcast is now a proud member of the History of WWE.com website. The History of WWE.com features thousands of complete cards and detailed results from throughout wrestling history for multiple major promotions, in addition to outstanding columns and reviews. It is now also the official home of the Place to Be podcast and Scott and Justin's pay-per-view reviews. Visit us at thehistoryofwwe.com or on Facebook by searching Place to Be podcast or The History of WWE. The Place to Be is now History of WWE.
Back here, he's got his own billiard room. Yes, it's what do you call it, Kramer? The billiard room? No. The name. The billiard? Not the billiards. It was. Come on, Rudy. Come on. We call it the place to be. The place to be. Yes, it's the place to be. Then I shall be there.
Now, it's time. Live and in living color. The Grandy Man can. Time to play the game!
Well, you always left me satisfied and smiling, so.
That's what she said!
Why do I want this?
Yeah.
Because I want to make bank, bro. I want to get ass. I want to drive a Range Rover.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, it is now time for the Place to Be podcast. And now your hosts, Justin Rosero and Scott Criscolo.
Yellow, black and yellow, black and yellow, black and yellow. I put it down from the whips and my diamonds. I'm in black and yellow, black and yellow, black and yellow, black and yellow. Black stripe, yellow paint. I hear this.
Place to Be Nation, welcome to this jovial, exciting, pumped up edition of the Place to Be podcast. I am your co-host, Justin Rosero. And of course, the reason that we are so pumped up and overjoyed are the recent results of the NHL playoffs that culminated last night. So with that, let me bring in my co-host, the man who's dancing in his black and yellow thong throughout Norwalk, Connecticut, my PIC, Scott Criscolo. Scott, have you calmed down at all yet?
No, not at all. In fact, I'm already on my fourth bottle of Cavassier, and the thong is still feeling really good. So
That's good. I guess we should correct it. It'd be a black and gold thong, but the black and yellow was the only song we had that went
same
with
thing.
the theme there. So
yes.
So of course, as we have promised, this is our Vintage Vault episode, bringing at you only one episode this week, as I was on vacation, and we are going to be kicking off the 1990s for WWF pay-per-views. But before we get to that, we did want to briefly just touch on this because it's such a momentous occasion, and we want to do it while it's fresh in our mind. So we're not going to talk for very long about this. We'll get into it more next week on our headlines, but I wanted to let Scott just kind of get it out of his system and go ahead and talk about the Boston Bruins winning the 2011 Stanley Cup.
It's I've been rooting for a lot of different teams all across this country of ours my whole life, and I got to be honest. And I've been you're a Yankee fan. So you've experienced a lot of championships. Well, not a lot. I mean, most of them, obviously, throughout the years, but at least the dynasty of the '90s. And but I've seen 10 or 11 NBA championships. But yes. And but this one last night, just finally seeing the clock tick down and seeing the team. Dash Tim Thomas at the crease, which he owned over the last 2 months. Owned the crease. Might be the greatest feeling in the world for me as a sports fan. Because my brother said it himself, and all you listeners, older listeners that have been listening since the beginning in February, know my brother, who's been on the podcast in the past. He told me there is no other championship. World Series are nice. Super Bowl's nice, but he says really the holy grail of sports is the Stanley Cup. You just don't win it enough. And you don't see a lot of repeats. You don't see a lot of back-to-backs or three-peats or dynasties. Not lately. But when you win it, enjoy it. And I'm certainly going to enjoy this one. And I stood here watching on my TV. Just I don't want to say I was in tears, but it was pretty damn close. And we'll get more into the meat and potatoes of the postseason, obviously, on the headlines cast next week, but I just wanted to get it now since it ended last night. Congratulations to the black and gold. 39 years we've been waiting. 39 long years. And finally, a celebration in Boston for the hockey team. We've already seen 2 World Series up there, a couple Super Bowls, obviously the Celtics in 2008, but this one might be the one that fans revel in the most. And felt good. It really did. So I feel good as a Bruins fan to finally revel. And in a 1-year turnaround after getting swept by after blowing a 3-0 lead in a twice in games and on the scoreboard against the Flyers last year. A complete 180 to feel good about winning the whole thing. So
Well, you know how the saying always usually goes too with these kind of things, where a team, that badly needs a championship or has been cursed for so many years and kept away from the title for so many years. Usually, it's after that kind of torturous years when they bounce back and end up winning it. Like they have to hit that absolute rock bottom. Similar to a lot of people say with the Red Sox. How they had to have the crushing 2003 to eventually get to 2004, and had to come down from 3-0. So similar there. I'm happy for, like I said, I am a Bruins fan. I'm not as diehard as most people. I'm getting to that point, but I'm really happy for them. As much as I hate Boston fans in general, as I've said before on the show, I think the Bruins fans are the most knowledgeable, the most passionate, the true fans. You don't get as many pink hat fans in hockey like you have with the Red Sox and Patriots, and kind of with the Celtics now too. But I wish I had a good story about last night, but just to quickly recap my evening, and those of you who are friends with me on Facebook may know, but I was in my vacation home down in Naples, Florida, and Friday night.
Did you see DiBiase as you were passing the pool?
Yes. Virgil was cleaning his toes.
See.
Friday night, I dragged my family out, my in-laws and everything. We all went out. We watched the game that they lost, and it killed me because I knew now if the Bruins were to win, there was no way I'd be able to see Game 7 because I'd be flying home Wednesday night. So I was really banking on hoping they'd win Game 5 and then clinch a Game 6 while I was able to watch it. So Game 6 I watched at our condo down there. And of course, last night my flight was scheduled for 7:50, set to arrive back down to Providence around 10:40. So I'm thinking, all right, maybe I can catch the last 10 minutes of the game, see the celebration, whatever's going on. I was debating if I should try and go dark on everything and try not to find out. But as soon as I got on the plane and they announced that they were going to be giving updates, I knew that plan was screwed. So I just felt like I'd give in and just say, all right, I'll be keep posted by the pilot, and then hopefully I'll catch the end of the game. Well, Southwest, being the one airline with a conscience, makes the announcement that we're going to be leaving 20 minutes late because there was a flight coming in from Fort Lauderdale and they wanted to wait for some passengers that needed to connect. Now, if this was Delta or American Airlines or U.S., all the other scumbag degenerate airlines that I've been burnt by many times, they would have just left. They don't give a shit about anyone. They don't hold anything. They don't do anything that they don't want to do. So they take off. Of course, this is the one time I happened to be on Southwest, who actually has a conscience and some morals, and they decided to hold the plane. So there I am sitting watching the pregame. What's his name? Don Cherry, right? Is that the clown with the crazy suits?
Yeah, the Hockey Night in Canada guy.
Yeah,
yes.
So I was watching that feed through a Justin TV app I had. So I was watching the Canadian feed. And just as the game was about to get going, they tell us to turn off the stuff, all our electronics. So then we're in the air, we're getting sporadic. I knew that it was 1-0, then I knew it was 2-0. So like I'm just hoping, I'm like, oh, can I at least catch like the last 2 or 3 minutes just to see the the buzzer go and everyone celebrate. So as soon as we land, the stewardess says, welcome to Providence, and the Bruins have just won the Stanley Cup. I'm like, motherfucker, I missed it by like 5-10 minutes. I had a text from my mom saying that they had won, and that was about 8 minutes after before I turned my phone on. So I was like, that delay waiting for those people is what cost me to see the end. So I watched some of the celebration on my phone as we were taxiing in. I put it on, and I was watching Timmy carry the cup around and everything. So that was kind of cool. And then when I got home, I had DVR'd the game and the post coverage. So I was watching some of it. So, I would have felt a lot worse if it was like a really close nail biter and they won like on a last second goal or something. Like then I really would have crushed. The fact there's a little bit of an anticlimactic game made me feel a little bit better. But yeah. So this is my story. This is my bitching about the kindness of Southwest.
No, we'll get into the meat and potatoes of it next week on our Headlines cast. We'll talk about the postseason. I mean, because if you're a Bruins fan, it was the ultimate postseason because not only did the Bruins were the first team in Stanley Cup history to ever win 3 Game 7s in a postseason, but they took the two teams that I probably, next to the Rangers, probably the two teams I despise more than any other in hockey, and that's the Canadiens and the Flyers, and we beat them both in the postseason. So that, just top to bottom, if you're a Bruins fan, you really can't have a much better postseason than that. And I'm insanely happy. But we'll get into the meat and potatoes of it next week. We'll talk about players and stuff like that on next week's cast. We wanted to bring it up tonight just because it happened last night. So
yes, I agree.
And we haven't talked. Congratulations. I should say to you as well, we don't know where he'll be drafted, but you did make the right call in the postseason. And they did, in the opposite end of the spring spectrum, they did stomp on my Lakers. But the Mavs did finally win the World Championship.
That's right, huh? Who would have thought it? The miracle kid. And we'll get into the headlines. I'm going to call out our boy, Mr. Reish. Thinks he knows everything about basketball. And you too over there, sitting over there. You've lived,
Yeah.
you've been around since the ABA merger, and you
That's
didn't
right.
even see this one coming. So.
No, I didn't. I thought the Lakers would beat the Mavs. Just because I picked too much of my heart. I'm not doing that anymore. I picked too much of my heart because I wanted a Celtics-Lakers final, and they both got lapped.
I honestly didn't see anyone else pick the Mavericks. I mean, outside of maybe people that are Mavericks fans, but
No. A guy that we used to work with, who actually lives out in L.A. now. I've been trying to turn him to the Palace of Westwood, and meanwhile his team won and he lapped my team. So, but congratulations to Jason. And you know what? We won't get into LeBron, all that stuff tonight. But Dwayne Wade and Chris Bosh had the class to walk over after and hug and shake Jason Kidd's hand, and someone else decided to just walk off the court and not care. But we'll get into that next week. I just wanted to make that point. What happened at the end of that Game 6. So congrats to the Mavs and congrats to the Bruins. We'll get more into it next week.
Yeah, so we will stop boring all those people listening.
Yes.
That want to hear our wrestling chat. So
yes.
we will fire things up. We're going to kick off the pay-per-view year of 1990 with what else? The Royal Rumble.
It's time to rumble! It's time for the Royal Rumble, where it's every man for himself. The 30 participants include the Ultimate Warrior, the Honky Tonk Man, the Macho King Randy Savage, Rowdy Roddy Piper, Andre the Giant, Superfly Jimmy Snuka, Bad News Brown, Shawn Michaels, Haku, and Demolition Axe, along with the model Rick Martel, Coco Beware, the Hitman Bret Hart, the Warlord, the Mighty Hercules, Ravishing Rick Rude, Marty Jannetty, Mr. Perfect, Demolition Smash, Jake the Snake Roberts, Jim the Angle Neidhart, the Barbarian, Dusty Rhodes the American Dream, Tito Santana, Akeem, the Red Rooster, the Earthquake, the $1 Million Man, Ted DiBiase, Dino Bravo, and Hulk Hogan. Ross individual matches that will see Hacksaw Jim Duggan battling the Big Boss Man. Brutus the Barber Beefcake takes on the Genius. Rugged Ronnie Garvin faces Greg the Hammer Valentine. And the Bushwhackers beat the fabulous Rubio Brothers in tag action. Plus, Brother Love's individual guest, Sapphire and sensational Queen Sherry. We're ready to rumble. We're ready for the Royal Rumble. This is the Orlando Arena in Orlando, Florida, where you're looking at a capacity.
Akeem!
Haku! What's the other one that made me laugh? The Warlord!
I never get tired of Vince's intros.
You know what cracks me up? Why did he have to do Axe and Smash separately? What did he just say? Demolition, Axe and
Yeah,
Smash.
he always did that. And it's funny because in the picture, too, they show both of them, so it's kind of odd.
It's so weird. I don't know if he did Brett and... I didn't notice if he did Brett and Anvil separately.
Yeah, he did.
But...
All the tag teams are separate.
Yeah, it was very, very strange. All right. January 21st, 1990. New decade. And boy, does the decade end very differently than it's about to begin. That's for sure. The Orlando Arena, as Tony mentions, in Orlando, Florida, 16,000. In the days, let's see, the Magic are only a couple years old at this point.
Yes.
So there is teams, there's somebody playing in this arena. Magic are only a couple years old. Buy rate of 2. We're not going to get into the buy rate formula again.
No, we're done with the buy rate formula.
Yeah, we're by with that. Buy rate of 2. Our announcers, as you heard, Tony Schiavone returns after his debilitating performance at SummerSlam '89, where he was under the desk in the fetal position, and his favorite broadcast partner, Jesse the Body Ventura. And we all love Jesse, but boy, does he look like a complete schmuck in this this pay-per-view with his goofy
Mickey ears.
With his goofy white sweatshirt and his Mickey ears. But you know what? At this point, Jesse's just having fun. Little do we realize how much we would cherish Jesse on the mic very soon. But obviously, Gorilla gets the pay-per-view off, getting his pipes ready for the next show, which we all know what that one is. The Rumble took on a different, pretty much the same. I feel like they pumped it up even more this time around than even the year before. I think the year before, even '89, I think they felt they were kind of tiptoeing. It was the first year of it on pay-per-view. Now that I felt they knew that the pay-per-view was a success,
right?
then they really kicked it into high gear in 1990. And of course, we have an undercard of moderately, not well. We'll get to the matches individually, but moderately good undercard in terms of characters, and then of course a loaded Rumble. Now I'm asking you, Mr. Rosero, were you at that point yet, or were you still kind of on the periphery when this pay-per-view started?
Yeah,
at
still,
this point,
still kind of outside looking in. It was right after the show, really, where I really started getting into it. Late '89, I was kind of cognizant of what was going on. I can't say I really remember much about this show. The build up or anything like that.
Right.
With that said, I've seen it enough times on VHS from age 10 on that I probably haven't memorized. This is definitely one of the 4 or 5 tapes that was heavy in rental rotation for me. So
yes.
I watched this thing. I'd rent it and watch it 3 times before I even returned it. So I have it. I have it memorized quite a bit. So
yes. Why don't we no dark matches? And Ken, as we go through the matches, we'll let you know, based of course on our awesome The History of WWE.com site by our good friend Graham Cawthon. We will let you know what matches are on other DVDs, because you can have the, I don't know if, I don't have the Coliseum video copy. I got the pay-per-view dub from eBay. We will let you know what matches are on DVD, other than, of course, the whole show itself, which, of course, is on the Royal Rumble Anthology set. So, is Jesse blocked out of that? I don't think so, right?
No, he's pretty much in all the anthologies. It was just a couple of those other sets. The Dusty one, and I think there's another one. But the anthology ones he's in.
You have the Ultimate Warrior DVD, right?
Yes.
Okay. Is the, I don't know if the Rumble's on there.
No, it's not.
Is he blocked out of that too?
It's not on. I think Hogan Warrior from 6 is on there. I don't remember if he's blocked out or not.
All right. Any event.
This tape, though, I have the actual VHS of this show, like the actual Coliseum home video version.
Oh, okay. Yeah, mine is a dub I got on eBay from a guy.
Actually, I think I have the rental version. I think I bought it. I remember my cousin Lou, obviously, from the bachelor party a couple weeks ago.
Ah, yes.
His mom actually worked for Blockbuster, so she used to kind of tip me off sometimes when they'd have used tapes for sale. So I think she sold me that for $3 or something.
Oh,
the 90 Rumble. So
best $3 ever spent. We will get into the Brother Love piece. I think, do we have it put on the? We do have it on the pay-per-view. So, of course, if you want to follow along while you're listening, you can always go to our message board, bigelow34.proboards.com, and go to the Rumble review written, and you can follow along with us. We will go. I'll do the odds. Justin will do the evens. I will start with our first match. I don't know why I picked that. Does this mean I have to? Maybe we'll switch. What's the third match? Oh God,
no,
I don't know what to do. Oh, everybody, I can't stay. This is killer. All right, I'll do this one first.
All right, good.
All right, our first match is a rematch of WrestleMania 5, which pits the Bushwhackers, Luke and Butch, against the Rougeaus, Jacques and Raymond. And this is a swan song for one of my PIC's first favorite tag teams. This is the final pay-per-view match for the Rougeau brothers as a tag team.
Quite sad.
Quite sad. Their final record. Do you have it in front of you?
Yes.
You do. All right, so never mind them. 10 matches, and their final pay-per-view record is 3-6-1. They were 0-2 at the Rumble, 0-3 at WrestleMania, 1-0-1 at SummerSlam, and 2-1 at Survivor Series, which means 2 of the 3 matches their team survived. The way we do the records, just to kind of clarify for you listeners, when we say a win for somebody at the Survivor Series, it's their team winning. They don't necessarily have to be the survivor. If their team won, even though they got eliminated, they get the win.
Right. Just
wanted to clarify that. It's not just so you don't have to survive to get the win when we do the records. So they were 2-1 at Survivor Series, which means they may not have been the final teams, which I don't think they ever were, but their teams won 2 out of the 3 matches.
Mm-hmm.
The match as a whole is it's not as fun. It's not as funny as the WrestleMania 5 one. What is it? Butch doesn't grab Jacques' twig and giggleberries, but I don't know, the match is okay. Crowd's not too bad here. This is their first foray into the Sunshine State, so crowd's pretty hot. I don't know. It's not a great match, but it's not a terrible match. Decent pace. It's only it's a little over 13 minutes, so it's actually kind of long.
Yeah, it's much longer than their WrestleMania match.
Yeah, they gave him a little more time to have some fun, and yeah, I mean the match isn't great. It's okay. Bushwhackers win again. I had a feeling, I don't know, maybe it's just me, but both Rougeaus, particularly Jacques, just looked like they really could care less. I don't know, just looked unmotivated, like
I agree.
they were going through the motions. I think they both knew they were probably leaving.
Yeah,
Jacques.
Yeah, I don't think it was any surprise at this point.
Yeah, and Jacques kind of had the sexy drug dealer beard going on. So
and now this is it. Raymond was done for good WWF wise. He comes back as an announcer later.
Yeah.
But Jacques will return a couple of times, obviously. So
yes,
we'll get into him a year from here.
Yeah, exactly 11 months. Yeah. But I don't know. The only other thing that annoys me about this match is the Bushwhackers' constant biting. Did they have to bite?
They did bite a lot.
They bit like every 2 minutes. It was driving me crazy. But
and it's
otherwise,
too bad. The Rougeaus, I feel, were really just, I would say, overwhelmed maybe by the talent in the tag division. It just seemed like the stretch they were in was just the worst possible stretch for a team like them to be in. If they had been in their peak in 1995, 1996, they would have been a lot better off.
Oh yeah.
Or even 92. But at this point here, there was so many other good teams ahead of them on the depth chart, and even while they probably may have been better in the ring and also had very good characters, they just came around at the wrong time. So it's kind of sad that they go out here like this, just getting bit and beaten up by the Bushwhackers, and then sent through the door unceremoniously. So kind of a sad end for the Rougeaus, in my opinion.
I agree. I mean, obviously Jacques comes back in a few incarnations. We'll get into his next one when we get there, but it is unfortunate because if they were around in the mid '90s, at that time in the tag division, which tag division in the mid '90s wasn't hideous. I mean, it wasn't what it is now at this point, but it wasn't terrible. But they would have definitely stood out as the most talented team in '94, '95, '96. But yeah, here they just seem a little out of sorts, and unfortunately, there were just so many good babyface and heel teams. They didn't really fit on either side, and so they kept them heels because they were just more entertaining that way. And unfortunately, they just kind of floated through the way.
After this show, now this was Raymond's first show of 1990, so he didn't do much before that. I'm sure he was probably on TV from tapings, but he would wrestle one match in March with Jacques against the Rockers in New Orleans. So I don't know if that was just kind of a one-shot favor. And then actually in December, they'd return for the Japanese combined show with the SWS, and him and Jacques would team up there. So he did 2 shots in Japan there. So that was it for him. So he really did pretty much call it after this, as far as WWF is concerned. I think he did some work up in Canada. I don't think he permanently retired.
No, he probably helped because for those that don't know, their father, Pierre, is that his first name? I don't know.
No, Jacques Rougeau Sr.
Is this Jacques Senior? Okay, I thought I wasn't sure if that was right. I thought maybe it was another name. He runs a promotion in the Montreal area, so he probably went up there and futzed around, and then he ended up being an announcer, and they ended up announcing later on down the line. But the opener's okay. Bushwhackers win again because they're sticking around. But the match itself is not really that much. It's a lot of biting, and Jesse calls them the marching morons, which I concur with wholeheartedly. So there's your opener. Bushwhackers win. Crowds, they're fun fan favorites. The kids love them, so the crowd's pretty hot for them, and they win an otherwise kind of blasé match. So.
Yeah, not much else going on there. Just a match to get things going. A long match, like we said.
Yep.
In this undercard, before they kind of realized that they could have guys do double duty, as we'll see in future years, here they really kind of watered down the undercard to load up the Rumble. So, there's a couple good matches coming up, but nothing high level stuff.
Right.
So our next match is actually a feud that had now been going on since the end of 1989, and that is the Genius, Landy Poffo, the manager of Mr. Perfect, taking on Brutus the Barber Beefcake. Hulk Hogan and Mr. Perfect had kind of been feuding since late 89. Beefcake obviously was involved with Hogan at that point, so him and Hogan were kind of feuding with both these guys, and once Hogan transitions away from Perfect, Beefcake would be transitioned to him. We'll see this happen with Beefcake. We saw it, in '89 with DiBiase, and it happens again here, where he kind of siphons off Hogan's feud for him. On November 25th, Saturday Night's Main Event, the Genius actually defeated Hulk Hogan by countout after Mr. Perfect interfered and hit him with the title belt. Now, I wasn't, completely watching at that point, but I do remember that match. Our friend Jim and another buddy of mine, George, were talking about that a lot. How the Genius defeated Hulk Hogan. And I remember knowing it was a big upset at the time.
Yeah.
Yep. So now Beefcake was looking for revenge here on the Genius. Another long match, 11 minutes. A lot of effeminate posturing from the Genius, as we've come to know him over the last year now. A lot of skipping around and back rakes and eye rakes. And, Beefcake kind of fights him off. And, the match is more of a show than an actual wrestling match. It was fine for what it was meant to be. Goes 11 minutes. Mr. Perfect eventually comes in. And, actually, there's some chicanery that I think the ref goes down and they start hitting each other with Beefcake gets the clippers. You can start cutting the Genius's hair. And then Perfect comes in with a chair and beats the crap out of Brutus, hitting him in the ribs with the chair a few times. So they ended up just calling it a double DQ. So no result here, no winner. But the Perfect Beefcake feud is kicked up a notch. There's actually some pretty good shots, too, with that chair. I know it's padded, but he uses the edge of it, really jabs it into Beefcake's ribs.
Well, there's a few things about this match that annoy me. Number one, not annoy me, but look, I love Lanny as much as the next person, and he's a fine character, and he was a good soldier in the WWE. But let's be honest, he was a moderately average wrestler. He wasn't great. He was okay. And Beefer, and we all love Beefer too, but these two guys were great geniuses, no pun intended. But so the match itself, neither of them really are the kind of.
I disagree with you on Lanny though. I think he was a great worker. Not in the genius persona, though.
Right. That might be the problem then, because I felt like neither of them really gained a foothold on the pacing of this match. It was very choppy, kind of went herky-jerky a bit. The ending of the match really drives me crazy because the ref is down. Beefer starts doing the cutting and strutting. Perfect comes in, jabs the chair, the bell rings, it's a double DQ, but there's one problem. The ref is still out.
Yeah, it's weird.
So who the hell called the DQ?
Yeah,
the Boogeyman?
I mean,
Jack Tunney? Who the hell called it?
This might have been better off being just like a segment, like an interview or something.
Yeah.
Because it was clear this whole match only existed to, get them to WrestleMania.
Right. Otherwise, the whole thing was just booked. It was just a complete mess. I almost feel like, not to bring it up again because I don't want to get you fired up, but it almost reminds me of that Hogan debacle at the Survivor Series where they just kind of threw these guys out here to kill about 12 minutes and then move on to the next thing.
Yeah.
I just feel it wasn't laid out properly. How do you call a double DQ? The ref's not even awake yet. So I don't know if you blame. I don't know who the ref was. I don't know if it was Earl or Dave or some Hebner or I don't know who it was, but whoever it was might have dropped the ball on that and was supposed to get up sooner and didn't. And
should have brought in Dennis Stamp as the referee. He would have done a better job.
If he was booked or involved. Maybe he would have. But you know what? With the travel, if he wasn't involved, I don't know if he would have.
Yeah, you don't want to double pay him. That's all I know.
Yeah, exactly. So just that whole segment, match and all, was just one big mess. It wasn't as smooth as it could have been.
Well, there was one highlight, I think, of the whole aftermath.
Well, let me go through my notes here. I don't know. What was your highlight that I'm missing?
It came afterwards. I thought to build the heat to 6.
Taking place, folks. The numbers 1 through 30 drawn by various people that are going to be participating in the Royal Rumble. We've got some people who are very unhappy about the number they've drawn. Mr. Perfect, I don't know what your frame of mind is right now, but before we talk about your participation in the Royal Rumble, I want to talk about what we just saw here earlier on. A singles match between Brutus the Barber Beefcake and the Genius, and you obviously interfered.
If you want to call that interference, you call it what you want. But I'm sick and tired of it. Every time Brutus the Barber Beefcake puts somebody to sleep, he thinks he can take advantage of them. Well, the Genius happens to be a friend of mine. And now you know, Beefcake, what happens to friends of mine when they get in trouble.
Wait a minute. Let's take a look at what happened specifically. You ran into the aid of the Genius, and I couldn't believe it. You actually went outside and grabbed a chair, took a chair from ringside. What was going through your mind?
I'll tell you what's going through my mind. Victory, the want to win, and that's exactly what I do every time I get in the ring. And I've turned some heads now in the World Wrestling Federation, and Beefcake, you're another reason, you're another excuse why Mr. Perfect is going to go all the way to the top in the World Wrestling Federation. You know, hair grows back, but Beefcake, your ribs, they may not grow back the right way.
That was totally uncalled for to the Royal Rumble. I'm sure you're going to have to deal.
I always loved that. That interview actually always stood out in my mind. I was able to get that right out.
I totally forgot what a tremendous promo that is. That just another example of how an outstanding overall package Kurt Hennig really was. That's just a tremendous promo. And unfortunately, maybe they booked it Well, when we get to 6, we'll talk about that. But you and I think, may have a slight disagreement about that. But that promo just, again, exemplifies how awesome a character he is. And then when we get to the Rumble, we'll really get frustrated. But that actually does kind of put a good cap on an otherwise kind of blasé segment. And actually, Perfect looks better than either guy in the ring in the end. But
yeah, no, he definitely did.
So there's the Genius. He gets he and Beefer wrestle to a double DQ, which kind of sets up the match, but the continuing feud between Beefer and the teammates of the Genius and Mr. Perfect, and more on that in our next Vintage Vault. Our next match, man, this is like the Scotty C PIC pay-per-view from hell. So I didn't realize how many guys I can't stand are actually on this undercard, but this match actually is very good, and this is I got a great story to tell about this match. I think Justin knows where I'm coming with it.
Yes.
Ronnie Garvin and Greg the Hammer Valentine finally cap off their feud with an I Quit. Well, it's not called I Quit. It's called a submission match. And the capper here is, or the stipulation is, obviously, the winner has to make the loser submit. In essence, it's a precursor to the I Quit match, obviously. Going back the clock, we talked about Survivor Series 89, SummerSlam 89, the whole Ronnie Garvin not wrestling, and he was a ref, and then he was an announcer, and then he was finally reinstated. Well, on the 12/23/89 Wrestling Spotlight, which is one of those kind of forgotten syndicated shows,
yes,
Ronnie Garvin came to ringside and stole Greg Valentine's Heartbreaker shin guard. And just as a kind of go back a bit for those that may not know, when the Hammer was managed by Jimmy Hart at the time, or did he have yeah, he was still managed by Jimmy Hart. He would use a shin guard. I don't know if he was faking an injury, if he was just flaunting it.
Well, yeah, they said it was an old injury he had, so it was okay to wear it.
Kind of like that Bob Orton broken arm thing. And whenever he was going to put the figure 4 on somebody, he would turn the brace around, so the brace was actually on his calf side of his lower leg, and then it would be harder leverage. If you've ever actually been in a figure 4, it's incredibly painful. Just to let you know. It is actually a legitimate move. There's no doubt about it. He used it to apply extra pressure. This led to Garvin wearing his own shin guard, which he called the Hammer Jammer, which is like the anti-Valentine guard. The battle over the shin equipment would come into play in this match. Now, before we get into the match itself, I got a funny story. When Justin and I first started, when we first met and got to know each other and talked about wrestling, one of our common interests, and we talked about for those that are new listeners from the history of WWE.com, and you go back to our earlier podcast way back, we talked about how Justin and I met and got to know each other and everything, and how we started doing our reviews. And I remember doing this review, and at the time we hadn't really gotten down the grading situation yet. So we hadn't done halves. We just did 1 through 5, and we really hadn't gotten down how to handle matches and we were very big amateurs 8 years ago. So so I watched this match and I said, I love this match. I'm giving it a 5. And he looks at me and goes, what the hell is wrong with you? I'm like, what? It's a great match. It's a 5. So you're going to grade the same. And he pretty much put it in perspective. He goes, you're going to grade this match the same as Savage and Steamboat. And then it hit me. I'm like, oh, yeah.
It's not that good.
I guess you're kind of right.
It's a good match, though. It is a good match.
It is a good match. We'll talk about the meat and potatoes in a sec. But I just found that was just funny. I'm like, I guess you're right. So obviously, 8 years later, we've obviously gotten the process down, and we adjusted our scoring of matches through time. In fact, we've gotten comments for years from our loyal readers, and I don't think any of our listeners have mentioned it, but they think we should kind of pare our scoring down even more. But we go by half points. I know a lot of other columnists and review writers go quarter points. I don't really like going that deep. I think half points are fine. But obviously, Justin and I, that's another discussion we may need to have.
Yeah, I even hate my own grades half the time. I'm like, we put it on there because that's how the reviews go for us. But I think our more important part are the comments and the fun facts.
Right.
I don't live and die by our grades. There are times I'm like, wait, how can I give this, and I'm giving that match that, and I really hate it. I think I like reviews that have it just because it gives you an idea of what you're thinking.
Right.
But no, by no means do we say this is a 3-star match. I
Right.
think it's more in our minds on a scale to 5. I consider this to be about in the middle of what I
Right.
consider to be a perfect match. And that's kind of how we look at it.
Exactly.
So it's just kind of more of like a wrap on our comments, I think, more than
Exactly.
an actual
Yeah. I mean,
legit grade.
exactly. We more prefer that you read our comments and kind of take our analysis in more than the number. To us, it's just a number. It's just kind of a frame.
That's why I think even on the podcast we haven't even been saying our grades. We just talk about
No.
the match. We just talk about these matches.
Exactly, we do. Polo. So let's talk about this match. And actually, and as much as I don't think it's the greatest match ever, it is actually a very good match. And
surprisingly good.
Yeah, it is. In the years that I've been watching wrestling, I don't think I've ever actually liked. And mind you, we just did a written review of Starrcade 87 on our board. I don't think I've ever liked a Ronnie Garvin match more than this one. Even the one with Ric Flair at Starrcade 87, I think I don't like as much as this one. I actually really like this match. The two of them actually have pretty good chemistry together.
Yep.
They both have that NWA philosophy. I'm sure these two have crossed paths before in the mid-'80s in Georgia or Mid-Atlantic or somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
I'm assuming their paths have crossed at some point. So they probably have a little history in terms of chemistry in the ring. But, they gave this match, give the Bookers credit. They gave this match almost 17 minutes.
Yeah.
That's pretty good for Vince for the undercard back in those days. He never gave, it wasn't until we got to the mid-'90s with main events that we have matches that long. Well, maybe not mid-'90s, but other than the main events.
Yeah, I don't think on any other card other than the Royal Rumble at this point that these guys would have gotten 17 minutes.
No, because the card, obviously, because there's not that many matches and you need to kind of fill the first hour and a half of the show. So the fact that this is a 17-minute match is kind of a surprise, but for once it actually worked out because these two really put on a great match. Valentine, I mean, the Hammer's a pro. I think we've all come to that point. And you know what? I'll give Garvin the benefit of the doubt here. He actually did put on a pretty good match here. He kind of went along with Valentine's pace.
Yeah, well, this match was right in his wheelhouse because it was just a stiff punch and chop fest.
Right.
And he just let Valentine. Garvin's always been a pretty good seller, and he sold all of Valentine's submission attempts. And they just, other than that, they just beat the piss out of each other. And I actually like the psychology here too, where Garvin had his own shin guard to use to combat Valentine's, the Hammer Jammer. So that was kind of the first half of the match was them trying to figure out how to work around those two shin guards.
Exactly. And then eventually Garvin locks in the Scorpion Deathlock, a.k.a. the Texas Cloverleaf, a.k.a. the future. Well, no, it's not really the Cloverleaf. The Sharpshooter.
Yeah, it's the Sharpshooter.
And the Sharpshooter. But right now it's the Scorpion Deathlock. Although I don't know what they called it. I know we referred it to that on our written review. But what did they call it? Did Tony actually call it the Scorpion Deathlock?
I don't know if he did. I'm not sure, to be honest with you.
You know that he would have called it that because he'd been dealing with Sting for a couple of years at this point. So
did Sting use it right from the start, though? I don't know.
Well, we'll find out obviously as we're going through the reviews, the NWA shows. But yeah, I think so because I think that first Clash of the Champions when he has the draw with Flair, I think he uses it. So I think he's had it from the beginning.
Okay.
I do. I think he has. So we'll obviously let all of our listeners and readers know that because that'll be that first Clash is coming up soon in our written reviews. But he uses it here. Valentine submits and Garvin wins the match. Probably, maybe just because of the exposure viewpoint, but other than him beating Flair in '87 for the World Heavyweight title, this is probably the biggest, most high-profile win of Garvin's career.
Yeah,
not because his career is bad, but just because you're in Georgia, you're in Mid-Atlantic, you only certain people. But here we are on a big stage, a WWF pay-per-view. Everyone's watching. Probably the biggest win of his career in terms of just an exposure viewpoint.
Qui siamo nel sud, Orlando, Florida.
I had a good spot in the match pulled up. I didn't realize it was the French feet or Italian feet apparently. I'm gonna try and find the spot because I had a good spot. I like the commentary that Tony. Like I said, I've had the show pretty much memorized, so I'll find it for us.
So instead, we have Jacques and Ramon's dad. Was that what that was?
No, I think it was the Italian feed. It said. I just realized after I looked at it, it said WTITA or something like that. So it must have been Italy.
Oh, that's hilarious. But yeah, so Garvin gets the big win here.
And actually, now this is it for Garvin. Let's talk about that quickly as well. Where
is this it for him? He's not at the wrong. He's not at.
No,
he's not at Mania. Yeah, he's pretty much done. He goes out with a no. He's not done. Doesn't he have one more match? He's at SummerSlam, isn't he?
No.
Doesn't he lose a match? No, this is it. Oh, okay. I thought he had one more pay-per-view match. Maybe
No,
not.
he gets crushed by Quake on I think it's a Saturday Night's Main Event in there somewhere.
Okay.
And then he's done. He might be around into the summer, but he's definitely not on pay-per-view anymore. I know that.
Okay. So he obviously only had 2 pay-per-view matches, and his final record is 1-1, right? Because the other match was what did he wrestle at 5?
He was at 5. He was at Rumble 89 as well.
Okay. So his final record's like what? 1-3? Was he on a team? He was on the team at Survivor Series that lost because he was on that weird team with Tito and and that group. So he was like, I think his final record's like 1-3.
Yeah, this is his only win.
His only win. So and then Garvin heads back to he goes back down to. By this point, it's clearly now with all the branding and everything. It's clearly now WCW now. It's not NWA Mid Atlantic or anything. It's WCW at this point. So and he heads back down there and he actually turns heel at some point down the line. He turns heel on Dusty, which is kind of funny. So.
All right, he's actually around a lot longer than I thought he was.
Is this like Billy Jack Haynes, where we thought he left at the end of like a month after WrestleMania 3, and he stuck around till like the end of '88?
Yeah, because I'm in August now, and he's still there doing jobs for the Barbarian. He was actually even on Primetime in August. So let's see. So yeah, he's around through most of the year. Just doesn't make pay-per-view again, I guess.
Okay, so he must just be making money filling out.
Yeah, he was on Primetime, Superstars. Wow, into September. Almost done here. October, he's still going. November 3rd, he defeated Buddy Rose at a house show. That's it, November 3rd. So yeah, he's around for the rest of the year. I did not realize he stayed around that long.
Wow. And and then he heads back down south to what is now officially, by 1990, is officially WCW. And
now Garvin's in pain. You're right. Now you're not seeing Ronnie Garvin making faces at Greg Valentine. Now you're looking at a face full of pain in that ring.
I always like that Jesse line when of course, is the first time Valentine hooks him in the figure 4. Garvin does he's making the googly eyes and doing the moose. I don't know.
The funny ears. Yeah, the funny ears. Yeah.
He sticks his tongue out at Valentine, and Valentine gets all pissed off. And so they call back to it later when they rip the hammer jammer off, and he locks in the figure 4 again. So I always like Jesse taunting him at that point.
Is Ronnie Garvin one of the most socially uncomfortable wrestlers you've ever seen in your life? He does nothing cool.
He's definitely straight out of like 1950s.
Yeah, he's incredibly awkward. But so there you have it. Ronnie Garvin does get the big win. He lasts throughout the year, but he does go back to WCW. And I remember he does turn heel on Dusty at a WCW pay-per-view. I don't remember which one though. Bash 91 maybe, or no, it can't be Bash 91 because he's not back yet. I don't know, maybe it is Bash 91. I don't remember which one it was, but he does turn on Dusty at some.
Sure that wasn't before this? Because
it couldn't have been.
According to Wikipedia, he just went back to the independents. Because Dusty, I don't think Dusty wrestles in NWA again, really, or WCW again.
Was it before that? Because I guess we haven't got. Maybe it was. You know what? Oh, you know what? You might be right. It might have been at Bash 88.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's definitely before that.
Yeah, it must have been Bash 88. All right, my bad. Yeah, I got the timeline wrong. Okay, it was Bash 88. I think we're coming up to it on our written reviews. He turns heel on Dusty because Dusty's wrestling for a title. It might be Luger when he was U.S. champion, something like that. I think he turned heel and then he feuded and then he kind of left at the end of the year. Actually, they both left really. So again, in my opinion, this is probably the biggest win of Garvin's career, just because it's such a high profile. Well, that and obviously beating Flair for the world title in '87, but this is just on such a huge stage. It's a pretty good win for him, pretty solid. So there you have Ronnie Garvin. So my two on my list of guys I can't stand. They're 2-0, and they're of course about to be 3-0. But before we get to that, though, I'll let you do both. You're going to do the next match, but I'll let you do the actual skit because this is one of your favorite feuds ever. So
yes,
I'll let you fire it up.
Yes, we have a Brother Love show with special guests, sensational Queen Sherry, and my main squeeze, Sweet Sapphire, if you will. Of course, Sapphire was the enthusiastic Dusty Rhodes fan that we referenced at Survivor Series 89. We saw her in the crowd in December. Dusty pulled her out of the crowd, and she became his new manager now. I like Sapphire. I always have. I'm a big WWF Dusty mark. But it did make Dusty look kind of stupid to have like this, not elderly, like this older black woman, like in her 50s, dancing with him, and that was his manager. You know what I mean? Like it was kind of goofy that this is who this loser had as his manager. So.
Well, it's kind of like 4 years earlier when in NWA when Jimmy Valiant had Ronnie Garvin in drag. It's probably about the same thing.
Yeah, it's like you couldn't give him at least a semi-attractive woman. I mean, Sapphire was fine. But she was pretty damn old. She was born in 1935, so in 1990 she was what?
45.
Yeah, so about what you are now. So yeah, pretty old.
Yeah,
and,
I look much, but I look better than she does.
I don't know.
But anyway,
if we put you in polka dot sweatshirt, I don't know. She would pass away in 1996, but we'll get to
or a
that,
shower cap.
eventually.
So. Really, was it that recent?
96.
I thought it was later than that.
No,
really?
I remember it was before an episode of Raw. They actually showed a thing. I was surprised, but
oh, they did a slate. Oh, that was weird.
Yeah, So anyway, they come on the Brother Love show. They do the usual jibber jabbering. Every time Sapphire goes to talk, Brother Love pulls the mic away from her, and because he was a suck up for DiBiase and Savage and those heels.
Mm-hmm.
So Dusty gets aggravated. I think Sapphire shoves Sherry first, and Savage comes out, puts his hands on Sapphire. Dusty comes out as well, and they get to a big brawl. And this would set up obviously one of the major matches of WrestleMania 6.
Mm-hmm.
But I love seeing Sapphire and Dusty at their WWF peak doing their thing.
Whoa, this is Dusty Rhodes, and I got my hands full in the World Wrestling Federation. And full of what? Come in here, Dollar. We gonna show them some stuff. I got the official WWF merchandising catalog stuff right here. You can order it out of that catalog. I'm gonna tell you in a minute how to get it. Look here. We got a WWF hat right here. Look how fine that looks on Dusty Rhodes magazine. What else we got? Woo, Sapphire, come on in here, baby. We got an Ultimate Warrior Suck Cup. And you can take this cup with milk in it, juicy, whatever you want to do, whatever we got. Oh, look at here. Oh, I felt you can be a champion. Everybody can be a champion, just like all the great stars in the World Wrestling Federation. And what else, darling, right here? Oh, show that. That's my favorite. Hold that up there. Dusty Rhodes official t-shirt. Throw that up there in the camera. Oh, is that pretty? And let me tell you, merchandise catalog, genuine, the only place you can get it right to this address right now.
I want my Suck Cup.
What the hell did he just say? Did he say an Ultimate Warrior sippy? It sounded like he said a sippy cup.
No, he said it's Suck Cup. It was like one of those cups that had the big straws in them.
And then the last 20 seconds, I had no idea what the hell he was saying at that point.
I was hoping we'd hear Sapphire talk in that one, but she talks every now and then. Yeah, she didn't do too much, but they did their dancing and whatnot, and Dusty wipes out Savage and Brother Love here. So we'll get more into that at 6. Obviously, another great match, mainly known more for its extracurriculars and the commentary of Jesse Ventura. So
what makes me laugh? I'll tell you something though. Two things. Number one, just Dusty at this point. I think he knew all along that Vince was ribbing him, so he said, "Screw it, I'll make myself even more
without a doubt
ridiculous." So and he did. Number two, I'll tell you something. Let me ask you, how often, other than having to buy the WWF magazine, did you ever find the catalog? They were pretty ingenious to only put the catalog in the magazine. I don't remember seeing the catalog anywhere else other than unless you bought the WWF magazine.
Was it in program? I'm not even sure if it was even in programs.
I don't think it was in programs either, to be honest with you.
I think you could send away for it.
Yeah, but who would want to do that? You might as well just get the magazine.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's although the catalog you send away for might have been bigger.
No, I think it was just that.
Yeah, maybe it was. But maybe programs I remember not having it might have had the catalog because usually it was kind of the magazine, just a different cover. But obviously at house shows, you have a lot of merchandise anyway, concession stands. So, but anyway, that was awesome. Just because the last 20 seconds, I have no idea what he was saying. It's like Ultimate Warrior and Jimmy Valiant all rolled into one. It was pretty awful.
All right, baby, we're gonna break away for a minute now. We're gonna get to our next match, and that's featuring my man Ray Traylor, the Big Boss Man. We now move on. Of course,
cutting a Starcade promo
to our next match. The Big Boss Man out of Cobb County, Georgia, baby. This is his final pay-per-view as a heel. We'll get to his face turn at our next show, but still a pretty nasty heel here, along with Slick, still using Jive Sobro, much to my delight. And of course, his opponent is the one and only Hacksaw Jim Duggan.
I got my 2x4.
Damn it! I had no control over this. Crap! Should have flipped these matches the other way. Oh God.
This match, surprisingly, may be one of Duggan's best WWF pay-per-view matches, I think. These two really beat the shit out of each other for 10 minutes. Just a great, slugging Haas brawl between two guys that just didn't give a shit. So it ends up another kind of a lame finish. Bossman gets DQ'd. I don't see why Duggan couldn't lay down here, and honestly, I don't see why Bossman couldn't even lay down here. He was past his Hogan feud anyway. He was going to be turning a few weeks after this, so I don't know why they made him look like more of a heel, and then we're going to turn him anyway. But the match itself, I actually really enjoyed, and I think, do you actually like it too?
I gave it a slightly less than you did, but I did. You're right. In this case, this was because for once Duggan actually had a guy who kind of mirrored his style. I set myself up for that one. They went out. You're right. It was a brawl, a slugfest. But again, somebody else gets DQ'd. Seriously, did he even bring out the 2x4 in this mess? He probably did. Oh, he does get a 2x4 shot in after the match. Oh, it was after the match. Bossman gets caught.
Yeah, Bossman used a nightstick. He had to retaliate.
Oh God! Everybody has to. I wish we could skip ahead 3 years. Anyway, oh my God, this is worse.
I gotta take you down from this Bruins high very quickly, my friend.
This is worse than Derek's old jokes.
We're gonna say.
Are you
now,
writing checks to Simon Cowell for this mess that you keep putting on the air?
We're gonna say it now. For his last event at King of the Ring, we'll just play the whole song, and that'll be it. We'll play the whole 4-minute jam.
Oh Jesus!
And then we'll call it.
The match is one of his better entertaining ones, just because it is a guy like him who they're just good brawlers. So in that instance, it fit. But again, why? And this is a serious question. Why do they seem to have to dance around booking Duggan matches? I mean, I don't understand. Either have the guy win or have the guy lose. But enough of this mess. I mean, has he ever been... He's like Piper, for Christ's sakes. Has he ever actually been in a pin win or pin loss in any match?
I will explain the philosophy to you very easily.
Over my other shoulder. I start going through the street. The people start chanting, USA! USA! The hair on the back of my neck stands straight up. The blood starts pumping through my heart. The air's in my lungs. I get a big and I do what Hacksaw Jim Duggan does best. Beat people up.
Now, does that sound like the guy that's going to lose a match? I don't think so.
Why couldn't his lungs have collapsed when he was smoking crack with the Iron Sheik? But anyway, by the way, just on a side note, Matt Rotella tells me today that this moron is actually going to write an autobiography.
Duggan is?
Yeah.
Oh, I know what I'm getting you for Christmas. Then.
Oh, great. He already told me he's going to get it for me for Christmas.
Oh, you can have 2 copies. You know what we'll do? We should get a copy. We'll have you sign it, and we'll give it away as a gift here on the Place to Be podcast. We'll have a contest.
Oh my God! Good luck with that. It's gonna be written in crayon and have left pictures. So anyway, there's your match. Duggan wins as usual, and but from a we're gonna get amazing feedback for this one. The meat and potatoes of the match is
someday we're gonna be big enough to actually have like a soundboard, and I can just have it at my fingertips anytime I want to hit the USA.
Jesus. Oh my God! And you know what sucks is eventually we'll obviously be doing pay-per-view review podcasts for our NWA reviews, and then I'll never leave it because then we'll have to go to his WCW appearances, which were a lot more embarrassing than these. So anyway, Duggan wins, and the match itself is better than most of his matches because he's obviously working with a guy who's got the same kind of work rate as he does. So.
Yes.
All right. I think we're past that.
And I do want to set the stage for us right here, though, and then I'm going to let you set up the Rumble.
Sure. Go ahead. Yep.
Yeah, the Royal Rumble, yeah, and the Macho King Randy Savage styling, yeah. And I realize that the American dream, Dusty Rhodes, would like to get even, but it can't be possible because I'm concentrating on all the superstars in the World Wrestling Federation, which I am number 1. And what a great place to prove that. In the Royal Rumble, Royalty, the Macho King Randy Savage, is the one person that nobody should bet against because you'll all go broke. Yeah, I am the winner of the Royal Rumble. And I told everybody before it happened to watch the Macho King. Watch me, Hulk Hogan. Watch me, Andre the Giant, Roddy Piper, take the snake, and all of ya. The World Wrestling Federation has one man that is royalty, and that is the Macho King Randy Savage. Ooh, yeah!
It's a 40. Very selected. Picking number for my powers of pain. Because you don't know what Mr. Fuji is thinking. Because when I reach my powers of pain in Royal Rumble, anything goes.
It never ceases to amaze me what the human mind can come up with. I mean, you think of the whole concept. The Royal Rumble this afternoon, you're going to take 30 men, and every 2 minutes you're going to send somebody to that ring. A fresh man. So you're thinking to yourself, oh, what number might be the best? Well, the last number would be the best. But that doesn't really mean anything, because there's still going to be a lot of hungry men out there. And hopefully I'll be one of those hungry men. The man that wins this match is not going to be the man that is the best wrestler, the best athlete. It's going to be the man that will do anything. The man that will take that extra step. Do just a little bit more than anybody else. Maybe sacrifice a little bit more than anybody else. Now me, that sounds just a lot like me.
Hey, man, Royal Rumble, baby. You got one man hitting that ring every 2 minutes. It's really a nasty affair. Bodies are going everywhere. Up there, down this way, everywhere. Through your legs, everywhere.
Don't get worked up. Mellow out.
In this Royal Rumble, one-on-one, survival of the fittest. But the pink and black attack is back, and we're ready to go the distance in the Royal Rumble this year. Yeah, baby.
Honky, this is it, baby. The chance we've been waiting on. A chance for you to play all your hits, baby. You better believe it. The Honky Tonk Man's going to play all his hits. In fact, the Honky Tonk Man's going to play 29 of them. I hope I'm the first one to go out there, because what the Honky Tonk Man's going to do is every 2 minutes I'm going to play a new tune. In fact, I'm going to lay down some mean tunes. You know what I'm saying? The Honky Tonk Man is going to be the winner today of the Royal Rumble. The Honky Tonk Man will stand alone and serenade hundreds of thousands of people.
Just like I told each and every one of you Hulkamaniacs out there, I told you I'd be ready for the Rumble today, man. You know, I got here a little bit early. I seen a lot of the opponents walking up and down the hallways, and they all seem confident. They all seem prepared. But the one thing they don't realize is you gotta expect the unexpected. You gotta realize with Hulkamania running wild, with Hulkamania at its peak right now, the strongest it's ever been, no matter what type of shape, no matter how prepared you are for the Royal Rumble, the one thing you can't compensate is the power of the Pythons with all my Hulkamaniacs behind me. Each and every man for himself. No friends, no enemies. The single goal in the Royal Rumble is to prove what is the strongest force in the WWF. I don't care if it's Dino Bravo, the so-called strongest man in the world. I don't care if it's Hercules. I don't care if it's the Ultimate Warrior. I don't care if it's Mr. Perfect. One by one, I'm going to dig deep down inside, pull that reserve energy out from the training, the prayers, and the vitamins. And once I beat all other 29 opponents, I'm going to show the whole WWF, the whole world, that nobody is more powerful than Hulkamania when it's at its peak. And what you're going to do, WWF, when Hulkamania rumbles all over you.
I love of the 30 guys he picks Dino Bravo to call out. Like, is he a real threat to you?
I know.
I don't care if it's Dino Bravo.
He's probably the first heel that came to his mind. A great montage there of
yeah, I could listen to
promos.
Late 80s, early 90s promos all day long.
Oh, it just continues. We talked about it at the when we did the '89 Survivor Series. You put the right guys in with the stick, and it's pure gold. I mean, Savage. You know, I think I was kind of hard on him, and if you read my comments on our review, I was a little hard on him, but I was. Yeah, he cuts a promo, you won't even know what the hell he's saying. But you know, he'll come in with the 2x4, hit everybody, and you know that'll be fine. But you know, I kind of gave him a little crap. If you read my comments, I'm just kind of going over him now, but the guy still could cut a good promo, even though you know at this point you really didn't know what he was thinking. Jake actually. Jake almost sounds like Sid in that promo. Like, he kept on saying, "I'm the man." I kept waiting for him to say, "Who rules the world?" It sounded just like him. But and then Hogan, as usual, "I'm the greatest and you all suck" promo. Like that at this point, I think we're all starting to run out of patience with.
Well, he had to put Dino Bravo in his place. That's all I know.
Exactly, because and you know what? It pissed off Dino Bravo's friend. Boy, did it piss off his friend. Let me tell you. How did we do this? Did we do the? We said who came in, and then waited until. Yeah, we had a process the last time. I can't remember.
No, it wasn't a very good one. So let's just kind of go with it.
We'll go down. All right. Unlike last year where he was able to buy his number, Ted DiBiase drew number 1, and he came in first.
And great symmetry there. I really love the booking, and I like how even Fink rubs it in with the announcement. The man who last year drew number 30 and this year drew number 1. It's like you had to rub it in.
Yeah.
But yeah, I like how they did that. I like how they made it like now this year who's going to outlast, have to outlast the whole field if he wanted to win. And
Right.
I like how they have him actually, last a while too. He really he ends up being the guy in there the longest. So
Yes.
I like how they did that. They really told a nice story with kind of just what could have been a throwaway spot.
Exactly. Coco Beware comes in at number 2. So guess a 2 for 2.
Yeah, no, he gets tossed out right away by DiBiase. It's kind of an interesting beginning as well, because him and Marginetti at number 3 both get tossed by DiBiase,
Yes.
one after the other. So DiBiase standing there by himself, and it was kind of cool. You're wondering, like, is he just going to keep running through guys?
Yeah. Number 4 end up being Jake the Snake Roberts, which obviously we finally get into a plot point here because these two had actually been feuding. So they start battling, and they're in there, and then they both stay in there for a while.
Yep.
Savage comes in at 5, and he ends up eventually. I don't think he does it immediately, but he eventually eliminates Jake. I think Jake's in there for a little while.
Yeah, they're all, and the next guy was Piper, and actually I love that foursome that was in there. Very cool. DiBiase, Piper, Savage, and Jake. 4 of the late '80s icons.
Yes.
Of the upper mid card. It's cool to see the 4 of them kind of go at it for a few minutes. Because Savage and DiBiase beat the crap out of Jake until Piper comes in to save him, and then they kind of pair off. And then the next few, the Warlord came in at 7, Bret Hart at 8. And it was interesting to me in that promo how he says the pink and black attack is back. So it's kind of like they were almost referencing that they hadn't been together through late '89. And they're kind of reuniting now. And we'll see through 90 would be probably their most successful year. Maybe, I guess you could argue maybe 87 was, but 90 ends up being a pretty damn good year for them as well.
Well, good year for them. Obviously, on the other side of the fence, they're now baby faces, so it's a little different. But and then Bad News Brown comes in at 9, and thus beginning a new feud to get us through the road to WrestleMania, and that is between Bad News Brown and Roddy Piper, who end up, I think, did they eliminate each other? I think they do, right?
Well, Piper dumps Bad News with like a backdrop, and then, maybe it's the other way around. Maybe Bad News eliminates Piper, and then No, it's the other way around. Piper tosses Bad News, then Bad News pulls up and yanks Piper out of the ring.
Yeah.
And then he stands up on the apron and does a little fisting, and Piper pulls him down, and then they brawl over to the back.
Right.
So that ignites that feud. So they're both eliminated, and then Dusty Rhodes is in at 10. As you said, Savage eliminates Jake, and then Dusty would get some revenge, tossing Savage out eventually as well.
Right.
To keep that feud going.
Yes. Andre the Giant comes in at 11.
And actually, we have a major storyline event to talk about here that we had not discussed yet, and that is the change of the tag team titles.
Yes. It was on, I don't know what the date was, but it was in December.
I'll pull it up, God, while you talk.
Yeah, let's see if I got it right. It was in sometime in December.
I want to say. All right, let's be sick if I get it right. I feel like it was December 13th for some reason.
Okay, and I believe it was in Huntsville, Alabama. Was where the he's good with dates. I'm good with cities.
All right,
I believe it was Huntsville, Alabama, where the title change took place.
So why don't you talk about the?
Okay, so Andre comes in at 11, and then the Red Rooster comes in at 12, and he ends up getting eliminated by Andre. And by then
this is it for him.
Yeah, this is it for Terry Taylor. He's gone, and he ends up heading to WCW as well.
He will be back, and he does make another pay-per-view appearance.
Yes.
In the 93. So, but as far as this character, the Red Rooster's done. He for sure I know only sticks around to like March or April. And he actually, I remember this is another show I watched a billion times. Is the WrestleMania 6 primetime special. I know we've talked about this in the past, and he loses to DiBiase. On that show, and it's memorable to me because I remember they it was from the San Francisco Cow Palace, and there was this really fat lady in the front row, and Jesse goes, "Now I know why they call it the Cow Palace." And,
That's right.
It was really funny. I always remember it was in that match, so they
that's
something
pretty
for fans to look for.
Was that the is that the prime time where Gorilla and Bobby are at this restaurant table at the Needle?
Sky
Is that?
Yeah.
That's right. I remember that, the Sky Dome restaurant or whatever. I remember
We'll
that.
talk more about that at 6.
Yes.
They do have stuff to say about that. But we were, Scarily correct. It was December 13th in Huntsville, Alabama. So, pretty disturbing that we knew that off the top.
Now you know why we have a podcast, folks.
Yeah. Why we have a sickness.
Or, one or the other. They work together. So Axe, Demolition Axe, who now former, at the moment, tag team champions.
Yeah, well, we didn't even say who they lost to. They lost to the team of Andre the Giant and Haku, now known as the Colossal Connection.
And I believe, as far as we know, throughout his entire career, I know obviously just WWF, but I believe all promotions ever, I believe this is the only tag team title that Andre ever won in any promotion.
Let's see. Actually, he was the Florida tag team title holder with Dusty Rhodes.
Really?
IWA World Tag Team title with Michael Nador. The NWA US Tag Team title in NWA Tri-State with Dusty Rhodes.
Wow.
NWA Austra Asian Tag Team Champion with
Oh,
Ronald
for God's
Miller.
sake! Is that like the Asian? What is the Oriental 6-man in AWA?
Yes.
Doesn't even have any belts.
So and that's it.
So, okay, so we did win a few. So we did win a few.
This is pretty much his major.
Yeah. Well, him and Dusty, huh? Oh, they're little big buddies there. I never even knew. I honestly, I got to ask our man Dr. G that because I never remember Andre even being in Florida. That's weird. Did it say the dates when they were champions?
I could figure it out.
I'm just curious. I'll have to ask our man Dr. G because
it's kind of a unique team, though. I like the team with him and Haku, and it's kind of a chance to give Andre one last run in the sun, and to give Haku some props too, because he's a guy that was kind of he had a good team with Tama that was kind of like the Rougeaus, where it kind of buried next to the depth. So it's kind of cool to see him get a title as well.
And of course, obviously, for those that obviously know, their name was the Colossal Connection. That was their team name.
February 15th, 1981, they defeated the Cowboy Connection, Bobby Jaggers and R.T. Tyler.
Oh, so I think that was around the time that Dr. G was watching. I'm going to have to ask him. See,
and then it looks like they were vacated sometime throughout the year.
Yeah, because Andre got more money somewhere else.
And actually, they went inactive until 1986 when the New Breed defeated Kendall Windham and Vic Steamboat to win the vacant titles.
Oh, interesting. I'll have to ask him about that because I don't remember him ever telling me that Andre was actually in Florida. So speaking of Haku, he comes in at 14. So he and his tag team partners are in the ring together. And then Smash comes in at 15. So all four guys, both Demolition and both Colossal Connections, are in the ring at the same time.
And he and Dusty had won the NWA Tri-States U.S. tag titles in 1978. So
Tri-States.
There you go.
I think that's like Midwest, like Geigle country, Missouri or something.
It was Arkansas and Oklahoma and Louisiana.
All right, so a little bit south of there then. Okay. So Haku is 14, Smash is 15. So both Colossal Connection members and both Demolition guys are in the ring together.
Yep.
Demolition ends up eliminating Andre.
Yes, big spot there.
Big spot there. Smash eliminates Haku. Or Haku eliminates Smash.
We can talk about this because I think there's some comments pertaining to it in our feedback later.
Mm-hmm.
But this show gets a lot of crap for kind of being like, I think thanks to the undercard and the Rumble itself, a lot of people kind of see it as being like just a placeholder, nothing happening show. But there are a lot of WrestleMania matches that come out of this Rumble itself.
Yes, I agree. Absolutely. They did a good job here of kind of pairing up the list to kind of set things up. I mean, this is when they started to really, and obviously it gets better as they go along, but they really start streamlining these pay-per-views really well. So this is and that's why I said I feel like they really put a lot into this one. Whereas 89, I feel like they were kind of tiptoeing it because it was the first pay-per-view of the show. This year, you could tell they really wanted to make it something special. No, there weren't title matches or anything like that, but I still think that they took it seriously enough. And obviously, the way they laid the list out, they definitely had things laid out for it. Continuing on, another big mark of yours, Akeem, the Dream, African Dream, comes in here at 16. Jimmy Snuka comes in at 17, and he ends up getting eliminated by Akeem some point down the line. Mm-hmm. Dino Bravo, the
biggest threat to Hulk Hogan.
Biggest threat to Hulkamania comes in at 18. His partner, Earthquake, comes in at 19.
And now he would wreak some havoc in there. He'd eliminate a few guys, but the big question was how were they going to eliminate him? And that was a nicely told story by Tony and Jesse, I thought.
Yeah, he eliminated Dusty. Did he eliminate anybody else? He eliminated Axe.
Yep.
So he eliminated 2 guys. And then he is eliminated by a... Do you have a promo? Is that why you said that?
No.
I thought you had a clip for us. You laid that out. You actually faked me out there. I thought you had a nice clip laid out. He does end up getting eliminated by a myriad of guys.
Yeah, pretty much everyone in the ring. Yep.
Yeah, Haku, Jimmy Snuka, Ted DiBiase, who is still in the match, Smash, Dino Bravo, It's weird.
Well, he
And
comes over. Actually, because I have a funny story about this too.
and Jim Neidhart.
What happens is I think it's Neidhart, Smash, DiBiase, and Haku are all kind of pushing him against the ropes, and Snuka comes up from underneath and like uses his back and does like pushes Quake over the top, and Bravo kind of like runs up from behind, and I think he accidentally like helps push him. But the story is when I rented this, it's probably like the 8th time I'd rented it. For some reason, I decided one time to write down all the entrants, the order they came in, who eliminated them, and so the tape was due back that day, and I was still kind of going through it. And I think we had to go to church or something, so I had to go take a shower. But if I didn't get through it before I had to return the tape, I wouldn't have the complete list. So I had my dad sit down with the pad and pen, and I wanted him to write down everything.
Can't wait to tell this story, Ann.
So
I know your dad, too.
So he's writing down, the entrance for me, and he puts down that just Snuka eliminates Earthquake. Now, I know that wasn't true because I'd seen the show like 10 times. So I'm like, no, it was a bunch of guys. He's like, no, Snuka was the guy that came in and pushed him out from underneath. And we got to like an argument over it. And I'm like, no, it was like 6 guys. Why didn't you write them all down? I'm like, you're just being lazy. He's like, no, it was Snuka. Snuka is the one who really eliminated him. And we ended up having like a fight over it.
I can't believe you got your dad to write that down. That's hilarious. Oh, Jesus, that's funny. I'm glad he picked Snuka, though. At least it wasn't that Smash guy, the guy with the makeup on his face.
No, he knew his guys. He was he was a bigger wrestling fan than I was in like 88, 89. I remember watching, with him. And he watched with me pretty regularly until like 97, like just like Raws and stuff. Not all the time, but
right.
A lot of times in the mid 90s, I just order pay-per-views and watch them by myself, and he'd nod in and out, but yeah. So he knew who guys were. He knew what was going on.
And actually, a nice historical reference here pertaining to your father. You can tell your dad that he's prominently in this podcast. One of the first times that I visited and met your parents when we first hung out.
We gotta stop making us. We gotta stop making us sound like a couple.
Yeah, it is pretty funny. Oh, when I met your parents,
when we first met and started becoming friends, and our relationship grew. We referenced that a few times, and now you're meeting my parents' stories.
Yes. Oh God. Anyway, when I first met your dad, let me rephrase it that way. When I first met your dad, we were all sitting in the living room or something, and I remember what the heck did we throw in? I think it was Mayhem '99.
Yeah,
it was some weird late '90s WCW paper. Remember, it was like Vampiro and a bunch of midgets or some strange
a bunch of midgets playing basketball.
But anyway, that was the first. And your dad actually fell asleep, so it's funny you said that he kept nodding off. I think he nodded off there too. But anyway,
actually, one more funny story with him.
Yes.
And this is jumping forward a lot of years. I was watching the second One Night Stand. I actually ended up watching it alone because my friend Andy, who would watch at the time, was out of town, and our friend Jim was working. And I think my sister actually watched some of it with me. Because I really wanted to order it. Huh? Yeah,
One Night Stand 06? Really?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Well, because I really wanted to see it, and I didn't care that no one else could watch it with me. Like, that's how badly I wanted to see it. So he comes over. I think he like dropped my sister off or something. He walks in, and he's like staring at the TV for a few minutes, and because the show had just started, and he's like, like you would think like he broke like this big news to me. He's like, McMahon's involved with this, right? It's not just like ECW doing their own thing. I'm like, oh, really? No kidding. Obviously. Like, he really thought he was like getting some inside scoop and like breaking some news to me. I'm like, come on. That was kind of our one of our last wrestling related conversations.
Oh Jesus, that is so funny. Well, you can tell Tony that he was prominent in this podcast.
I will let him know. And then he'll stare at me for 10 minutes because I'll have no idea what the fuck I'm talking about. I'd have to explain to him first what a podcast was. And second, I'd have to remind him who you are. He's always met you a million times. So
no, I actually talked to your dad a lot at the Rotella.
Yeah, he still doesn't know though. Like when I was, all right, one more story. When I was in high school, my friend Rich, who obviously I've known since
referee
like
Rich,
third grade, and I'm talking about like a close friend, like a family friend, very close.
Yeah.
So I go out, and this is kind of like the first time I kind of went out in high school. It was like freshman or sophomore year or whatever.
Right.
We went to a hockey game, and then we went out after, and then we went to, I think it was Rich's girlfriend at the time, or a friend of his, I don't know, whatever. There's like a group of us, my friend Joe and a few of us. We were just at this girl's house watching TV, and I called my dad on the way there, and I'm like, yeah, I'm with Rich. I'm like, we're going to this guy's house, or girl's house or whatever. He's like, all right. I don't know if he really was even paying attention to the fuck I was saying. So, it's like midnight rolls around, and I guess my mom was freaking out. She's calling Joe's parents, trying to find out where I am. They're just going crazy. And so finally, I get home because there were no cell phones at that time or whatever. So
Right.
I get home and she's like, "Dad said you were with Rich," and he didn't know who that was. He was like, "Rich, who's Rich?" I'm like, "Rich." I'm like, "I've known him for like 12 years. He's been staying over our house." I'm like, Rich." I'm like, "What the fuck?" So that's when I first realized that my dad, he's definitely someone who you need to explain things to multiple times, and even then, he probably still will forget.
Oh, we love you, Tony. That's funny.
So, all right, we've
That's
bored
hilarious.
people enough with
Okay,
stories. About
that's
that.
another the inner workings of our lives. Anyway,
So Snuka
Earthquake,
eliminated Earthquake. That's the main.
yeah, Snuka,
moral
and
of
that's
the
all that
story.
counts. So, and that's all that matters. And this is Vince's show. I said Jim Neidhart, who ended up coming in at number 20, and he helped eliminate Earthquake. Then we have our first major. Well, I shouldn't say major, but now we have a show-changing entry, and that is the World Wrestling Federation Intercontinental Champion, the Ultimate Warrior, comes in at number 21. Then we have who would end up being a future Royal Rumble marathon man,
Yes.
and that is the model Rick Martel, and he is officially the model now. I think we kind of established that at Survivor Series. He now walks around with like a, has he started walking around with arrogance yet? No, I don't think he does.
I think arrogance comes between now and 6. He has it at 6, I think.
Okay. Now he's like an actual model, and he's very fancy schmancy, and he's got his pink tights, and now he's from Cocoa Beach, Florida, even though he's got the very thick French Canadian accent. It's kind of like Ronnie Garvin, who's from Montreal, but they always say he's from Detroit, Michigan. So anyway, or Atlanta, Georgia, which is even funnier. So Ricky Martel comes in at 22, and then of course his big rival Tito Santana comes in at 23. See, I agree with you about your theory about this Rumble. These guys weren't stupid. They didn't just slap together a show and throw it on the air. Right. They really did take the time to book these 30 guys in the right spot. There was definitely a method to the madness. Oh yeah, no pun intended. They actually did do the right thing here and kind of match things up.
Is that supposed to be Macho Man or the Kool-Aid guy?
Both guys.
Right.
Both.
Combination.
So Tito came in at 23, and then Honky Tonk Man comes in at 24. He wanted to come in at number 1 and eliminate everybody. Well, he wouldn't.
And now, I always found this to be a funny moment too. This just shows you the psychosis I have with this tape that I have the whole thing memorized. Yes. As the buzzer goes off and the curtain opens before Hulk Hogan emerges at 25, you actually hear a fan yell, "It's Hulk Hogan!" like really loudly on camera. And then there's this like huge ovation as he comes out. So that always made me laugh.
That is pretty funny. So yes, Hogan comes in at 25. Then Shawn Michaels, one half of the other half of the
Well,
Rockers.
Hogan and Warrior start cleaning house at this point. So
do they start cleaning house here?
Yeah, guys are kind of flying out, and
Yep.
Shawn is the last guy that enters before obviously the big moment of the Rumble. So he's only in for 12 seconds because they obviously needed to get him out fast to clear it out. So right as Shawn enters is when they're really finishing to clean house, and that's where we'll pick up.
Yep.
Makes it 5 in the ring. And Honky Tonk. Hogan eliminating the Honky Tonk Man. Shawn Michaels eliminated by the Warrior. And Rick Martel eliminated by the Warrior. And look at this. Look at this. My God. Hulk Hogan and the Warrior. There is not a person sitting down. Everyone on his feet. Look at the eyes of the Hulkster. The eyes of the Warrior. Whoa! What a matchup this is going to be! The Ultimate Warrior and Hulk Hogan, 1-on-1. Hold on to your seats. This place is going to explode. Whoa! Nobody moves. Again. Oh my God. Nobody moves. Look at this. Crisscross. The Hulkster's down. He missed a clothesline. Oh, and they clotheslined each other. They're both down. Unbelievable. Absolutely incredible. These two athletes, the Hulkster, the Warrior, every man for himself, going at it.
What an awesome moment. It really was.
It still gives me chills after 21 years. And as usual, who's the guy that sets the table better than anybody?
Oh, yeah.
That's Jesse, without a doubt. And actually, you know what? I got to give Tony some props. He actually did a pretty good job there helping Jesse paint the picture.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
I almost think he did. You know what? I almost think he would have done a better job than if it was Gorilla. And the only reason I say that is because Gorilla was so pro Hogan. I don't know if he would have been able to give Warrior the equal justice that I might be wrong because
he might have stepped on Jesse a little bit too. I think Tony was kind of good at he'd get his yell in and then he'd kind of lay out while Jesse really was the soundbite guy to set the stage.
Yeah, I agree. I think Gorilla would have stayed in his kind of his play-by-play mode and wouldn't have given Jesse as big a window as Tony did. So, as much as I love Gorilla, this was actually a good moment for him not to be on mic. I think Tony did a better job of kind of painting it for us, and then Jesse it still gives me chills. It's amazing. And you knew there is no question at this point. There was your sixth main event. I don't think there was any doubt about it.
No, I mean, yeah, obviously by this point they knew. But do you think there were just dollar signs lighting up Vince's eyes when he heard their reaction to that?
Yeah, Vince was drooling at this point. He knew it. He knew, Zeus can go off and make some, probably, I think Tiny Lister ended up doing like First and 10 on HBO or something at this point or one of those bad cable sitcoms because he had his main event. He had his money, after a couple of years and you had the tournament and then you had, nothing against Savage Hogan, which was a good main event at 5. But I think Vince is looking at this and going, I think I'm looking at my first legitimate main event since Hogan Andre right here. And this for completely different reasons. And we'll get into more of the psychology of it when we do the next Vintage Vault. But right at this moment in time, everybody in the whole company, everybody is looking at, oh my God, we have our money match. We have our money match. And Jesse, to his credit, as always, painted the picture perfectly and got the people at home. The crowd at the arena in Orlando already knew it. But Jesse did a hell of a job of getting us, the viewer at home, to get sucked in. And now, as over 20 years later, I'm still getting sucked in by it. It's just a tremendous moment. It still gives me chills. And so you saw that moment, and they're both down. And then the Barbarian comes in at 27. And he starts beating on the two of them. Rick Rude comes in at 28.
Well, I always like that spot too. Rude actually comes in like 10 seconds too early. He jumps the gun and comes in because he can't wait to help beat the shit out of Hogan and Warrior. So
yes, exactly. So he runs out like 10 seconds before the clock goes. Then Hercules comes in at 29. And then finally, and here's where we get our...
Actually, it's before Hercules comes in, I believe.
What?
When the... I'm guessing you're talking about the big spot that happened?
Well, no, I'm talking about the backstage dipsy-do that happens with the guy that comes in at number 30.
Oh.
But yes,
let's talk about the elimination first?
Yeah, let's talk about the elimination. Yes, let's talk about the elimination.
Still with the Barbarian. Rick Rude. And the Ultimate Warrior. Now we get the Hulkster down. No, he's coming back. Yeah, they're going after the Warrior. They double team the Warrior. Here comes Hogan. And Hogan eliminates the Warrior. There you see it. You didn't see no love lost from Hulk Hogan. Wait a minute. You saw that under the Barbarian ring? Now what is the Warrior doing in there? He's been eliminated. Oh, he's a wild man. He's an idiot.
That is pretty funny.
And this is where you started to see, too, that Jesse was going to maybe start siding with Hogan over the Warrior.
Right. This one's a little different. I know I word it, in my comments on the column, on the review, and then I mention it again when we get to the Rumble a couple years later. But this one, I think to myself, you know what? It's not the same. And I think Jesse makes a good point of this, too. It's not the same as the year before. Hogan and Savage, they were still the mega powers. They were still a tag team. So you figure Hogan would help his guy out a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Here, there's no, just because they're both good guys doesn't necessarily mean they have to watch each other's back.
Right.
So Hogan eliminating Warrior in this instance, whatever. I mean, it's not that big a deal. It's not as big a deal as it was the year before with Savage because they weren't a tag team. They were the mega powers. This is just because they're both good guys doesn't mean they have to be nice to each other. I mean, Jesse makes a good point to kind of allude to that. Hogan eliminates Warrior, but I don't think it has that same teeth as when he eliminated Savage the year before.
No, it's just more of Hogan gets the first big shot in this Battle of Icons, basically.
Exactly. He fires the first salvo, and then Warrior beats the shit out of a couple guys and then leaves. Then at number 30, who pulls number 30 is indeed Mr. Perfect. Now, the original booking of this was, and I don't know how they would have done it. I don't know if Warrior was supposed to come back up the ramp and maybe distract Hogan or something. I don't know. But the original booking of this Rumble was that Mr. Perfect was supposed to win. Now remember, titles. There's no title at stake, no title shots. That's not for a couple more years.
Mm-hmm.
It's just a match, nothing more. And they had Perfect booked to win. And really, from the way the tempo and the pace of his career was going at that point, it really was a no-brainer. It really wasn't. And instead, just like at the Survivor Series, someone walks into the office and goes, well, I think just kind of build.
Is this person Anthony Licata by that introduction?
well, it would take
it
would have taken him 20 minutes to say it, but Hulk Hogan decides to change things up a little bit, and obviously Hogan eliminates Rude. Well, Rude eliminates Hercules, then Hogan eliminates Rude, and then finally Hogan eliminates Perfect by, I think he doesn't he go for a splash or gets thrown? No, he gets thrown to the post.
Yeah, no, Perfect hits the Perfect Plex, and Hogan actually kicks out. And then Hogan, he eliminates him over the corner. It was kind of weird. Like, he throws him over the post.
Yeah, which is weird that Perfect was actually attempting the Perfect Plex. I don't know why he was trying that anyway, but and that's it. So Hogan wins this Rumble. Did he deserve it? No, not at all. There was no need for him to need to win this match. A good mid-carder. And Perfect was just the guy perfectly slated to win this Rumble. It was fitting. It fit exactly the way that the progression of his character was going. It was a nice little boost for him, particularly going into WrestleMania. Your main event was already set. The Hogan Warrior dynamic in the ring was the highlight for the two of them. Neither of them needed to win the match at that point.
Yeah, their spots were solidified. Yeah,
they got their point across there. Whoever won this, either of them winning this match would have been completely irrelevant. So this really is when you start seeing the D-bag Hogan start to emerge. And there was no need for him. And I'll tell you something. As much as I've said it in previous podcasts about the current product, and we get into John Cena would never have done that. I will tell you that right now. If the Rumbles weren't for the title shots now like they are, and the Rumbles were just regular matches, Cena would never have done that.
Well, it just doesn't make sense, because knowing what was going to happen at WrestleMania 6, they really would have behooved them to have a solid heel challenger built up. And if you have this guy who, is undefeated and claiming, and now he can say, look, I even won the Royal Rumble, it just would have made him look a lot stronger.
Yeah.
And also, they could have easily had Hogan and Warrior eliminate each other at the same time. They're having this clash. And they fight and they tumble over the ropes, and now they're both out. And now it's like, holy shit! Now what's going to happen now? Similar to '89, and then you set that up. Say, look, these two guys eliminate each other here. Who's going to win at 6? Instead, you have Hogan dump him from behind under the guys who's trying to save him, and it's just a little more convoluted. And I think it's just another spot like Survivor Series where Hogan could have easily laid down and helped a heel look stronger in a match that he didn't really need to win.
Exactly, and then that kind of hurts the rest. And really, it's one of the moments that really hurts the rest of the year, and we'll document that more as we go along on the Vintage Vaults here on the Place to Be podcast. As we go through the rest of the pay-per-views in 1990, you'll see how a situation like this kind of hurts the rest of the year in terms of creative. One more fun fact about these 30 guys: we said as of 2010, I think we can add one more to this list. 1/3, that means 10 of these 30 guys are in the Hall of Fame. Let's count them. Let's see. Ted DiBiase 1. Roddy Piper 2. Bret Hart 3. Dusty Rhodes 4. Andre 5. Jimmy Snuka 6. Tito Santana 7. Hulk Hogan 8. Shawn Michaels 9. He's not in this match. Now you're just doing it. He's not even
He's
in this
in the Hall of
match.
Fame.
Yeah, but he's not in this match though.
He's still in the Hall of Fame.
Oh God. Yeah, with it. I wonder if he brought back the tux. Make sure he didn't spill any barbecue sauce on it. And Mr. Perfect 10. So wait a minute. We must have counted this wrong. Because you say as of 2000 on our review it says as of 2010, 1/3 of the participants are in the Hall of Fame, and that was obviously before Shawn Michaels was in. So am I missing somebody?
No, it might have just been 9.
Maybe it was. Ted DiBiase's 1. Roddy Piper 2.
Coco.
Oh, Coco. There we go. So Coco was 10. And so now, one more year since we wrote this, since we put this review up on our board, 1 has been added, and that is, of course, Shawn Michaels. So 11 of the 30 in this match are in the Hall of Fame, and more will follow, clearly, with most of the guys on this list. So
Yeah, well, you got to figure Savage. Jake eventually, I'm sure.
Jake will go in eventually. But I wouldn't be surprised if stuck Haku in there. He'll probably go in. I'm sure Demolition will go in at some point, maybe, if Axe isn't still pissed off. Rude will go in. Ricky will go. Martel will probably go in. Honky, I'm sure, will go in. So there's definitely more guys on this list that'll be in the Hall of Fame. So there is your Rumble. Your thoughts?
I don't know if we gave the stats. DiBiase was the longest, 44-47. Shawn was the shortest, 12 seconds, and Hogan eliminated 6.
So isn't that weird? What would happen to Shawn Michaels for the rest of his career? And here he is only in for 12 seconds.
Yes. Yeah.
Isn't that weird? Very strange. Your thoughts on overall, just on the match as a whole?
I always enjoyed this Rumble. I don't know if it's more for nostalgia purposes or not, but regardless, I've always really liked it. I like Tony and Jesse together. I talked about that at SummerSlam. I liked how many stories were really furthered for WrestleMania here. Jake and DiBiase, Hogan and Warrior, Demolition Colossal Connection, Savage Rhodes, Piper Bad News. A lot of feuds were really pushed along. I also, and I mentioned this in our review, I like how they had the managers at ringside this year. And so you kind of had like the Fuji and Heenan arguing, and Jimmy Hart and Slick out there. So it was kind of cool having all the heel managers out there kind of going at it too, to really make it like every man for himself.
Right.
And they were allowed to stay at ringside until their other guys came out too, if someone got eliminated. So, yeah, I mean, I've always liked this show a lot. I've always liked this Rumble a lot. It's a show, like I said, I've rent many times. I've seen it many times. Overall, if I have to objectively grade it, I put it at a C+ or a review. But I think it's a lot more fun than that grade relates it to be, and it's cool if you really want to gear up for WrestleMania. I mean, this is a fun show to watch. Is it just kind of there historically? Yes, but if you put it in the context of the build to WrestleMania, there's a lot going on.
Yes, exactly. It's funny. I was not even looking at the review when I was making my comments earlier, but I actually even put it in my final analysis about how Hogan tossing Warrior is not as big a deal as everyone wants to make it out to be. I didn't even notice that I wrote that while I was doing those comments earlier, so it's funny. Although I will say, I did say here that this show doesn't do too much to set it up, and I disagree with that. I changed my opinion since I wrote it in the review. This show definitely does a lot of setup and set, particularly the Rumble match. The undercard doesn't do anything. The undercard's just there to kill time. But the actual Rumble definitely sets up a lot of stuff. We talked about it. Sets up Jake and DiBiase. Sets up the Demolition Colossal Connection match. Obviously Warrior Hogan. So a lot of stuff is set up in this match, more than I thought it did at first. We both gave the show a C. That's about what it is. It's I thought you would give it a little bit.
I gave it a C+.
You gave it a C+. You gave it a little knock. You gave it a little kick because it was one of your first shows. So I gave it a C because it's not terrible, but it's not anything earth-shattering. Although the Rumble does actually have more juice to it in terms of creative preparation than I thought it did at first. So there is your 1990 Royal Rumble. Just to let you know, our MVP is Mr. Perfect for not being for not pissing and moaning about getting fucked. Runner-up, actually, we gave to Ronnie Garvin and Greg Valentine because they did put on the match of the night. The non-MVP, of course, is Hogan for being a douchebag. And the runner-up is the rest of the matches on the undercard, which were not great. They're okay, but they weren't great. So there is your first pay-per-view of 1990, the Royal Rumble. We now lock the vault, and then next week, I'm actually looking forward to this one. Number one, because I like the show. But number two, because this is when we really see, when I really feel the excitement of my PIC. Because this is when you really kick the door in on your fandom.
Yes.
And now here you are, 21 years later. So
Yeah,
that's gonna be
WrestleMania
fun.
6 is definitely my favorite show of all time. So I'm really looking forward to doing that
Yes.
one. And if you thought I brought some goodness on this one, I will be bringing many memories and many imitations and many promos from that show.
Yes.
So I got a lot of cool little
And more
tidbits.
stories about your dad.
So let's move on quickly before we get into next week's shows. Let's hit up some feedback.
Yes.
We
I'm
have
curious.
one quick comment I wanted to hit about Survivor Series, and then we'll move on to the comments about this show.
Okay.
Robert posted on the Podbean page. Thanks for the shout out on the Survivor Series podcast. It's amazing. Everyone looked great at this pay-per-view except for Hogan. Bossman, Dusty, Macho, Perfect, Piper, Arn, Warrior, and so forth all brought it to the show in advanced storylines. But they made the world champion look really weak, and they spent too much time pimping December's No Holds Barred. It's a shame No Holds Barred's not on DVD. It's a great PSA for what Coke can do to you. My MVP for 89 has to be Jesse Ventura. He made everything look so legitimate, something that's totally missing. Something that today's product is painfully missing. Looking forward to 1990. So thank you, Robert, for checking in there.
Yes. Yep.
All right, now let's move on to the feedback on this show from...
Mhm.
We'll start with the Place to Be podcast Facebook page. Graham from History of WWE noticed the Jacques Rougeau manly beard. He knows he's leaving and didn't bother to shave on his way out. That's quite true.
Yes, that is true.
Karen Polland.
The Hot Scott.
This is a surprisingly underrated show. Rumble events tend to be good, and this one's no exception. I have to admit, I had to do a double take when Hogan no-sold the Perfect Plex. I tried to rack my brain as to why. Otherwise, the match itself is good, and the Warrior-Hogan stare down is a great moment. They should have had Warrior win the Rumble to make him really look like the next Hogan. Doug and Bossman wasn't bad as I thought it would be, and Garvin Valentine's annoying at points because of them constantly trying to pin each other. Beefcake Genius is fun filler, and Rougeau's Bushwhacker seem to work well together. Keep up the good work. Jason Greenhouse. I love this pay-per-view. The Hogan Warrior WrestleMania prelude, that crazy back body drop that Randy Savage took from Dusty Rhodes to get himself eliminated from the Rumble. Tony and Jesse were awesome on commentary. And who can forget Jacques Rougeau's tough guy beard in the Rougeau's Bushwhackers match? 1990 is one of my favorite years in wrestling, and this pay-per-view helps set the year off on track. Jeremy Nichols, this is a great pay-per-view. For me personally, I think 1990 is a great year for pay-per-views overall. Love the entire Rumble, the pop Brett gets when he comes out and proves that he was on his way to the top. Corey Ferreira, the one moment I remember from the 1990 Rumble is the interaction between Hogan and Warrior near the end of the match. The two biggest faces in the WWF at the time face off in the ring for the first time. A very good start for WrestleMania 6. Dave Hall. This Rumble is dear to my heart, as it is the first I saw on TV. One of my favorite events ever. This should have been the perfect Royal Rumble until Hogan ruined that. While the build-up between Hogan and Warrior was awesome, I'd rather have seen Hogan and Warrior actually eliminate each other to build the match even further. Perfect was ripped off in the Rumble, but at least he got to beat up Beefcake earlier in the card, which I think many people would have liked to have done as well. I also love Jacques' beard, just wish they didn't have to job to the Bushwhackers. Todd Weber, the only notable thing to me was the amazing Hogan-Warrior confrontation and the super awesome crisscross. I can only imagine how excited Vince got, dollar signs in his eyes, when the crowd popped. I also love Perfect's bumping, and his elimination is pretty spectacular. Dennis Nunez, to me, the Rumbles from 89 to 91 all kind of run together. It wasn't until the 92 Rumble, when the WWF title was on the line, when it got interesting. Even afterward, when the winner itself would go main eventing WrestleMania, is when the Rumble became worth watching. The only memorable moment from this pay-per-view for me was the collision between Ultimate Warrior and Hulk Hogan. Or as Warrior called him at the time, Hulk Hogan. Nothing else really stands out for me from the show, although I do like the 91 Rumble a lot more.
On a side... Oh, okay, sorry.
No, go ahead.
No, I was going to say on a side note, just to kind of... When he does the Hulk Hogan, for those to put it in your mind, he spells it H-O space K-O-G-A-N.
Yes,
Ho Kogan.
Yeah, I definitely didn't do that justice.
Yeah, no, Ho Kogan. So, anyway, I just wanted to make people kind of have that in their mind.
Ho Kogan.
Ho Kogan.
And the last comment comes from our good time pal, Jordan Duncan.
Yes.
The 1990 Royal Rumble was significant for me as a kid because it was the start of something beautiful, hating Hulk Hogan. I was sure Warrior was going to win this, and that big stupid ox went and eliminated him.
I'm surprised he's still talking to us after you destroyed his childhood by taking away his Andre match.
Well, no, he came back with some bullshit, fanciful thing that he believes he found on some website somewhere that supposedly proves it. But
oh, jeez,
whatever. When I actually see the match that he was at, I'll believe it. Until then, he's full of shit. So
okay,
all right.
Incidentally, sorry, go ahead. No, I was just gonna finish it. And I had something to say about DVDs, but go ahead. All
right, quickly, we got some feedback from Graham's Facebook page, History of WWE.
Okay.
Graham again pimping Jacques Rougeau's manly beard. Mm-hmm. And he said the class warfare between the King and the Common Man. Poor Randy went from putting on great matches with Hogan to having to carry Duthie. Eric Cafiero, Why did Hogan have to win? Wouldn't it have been better for Perfect to win and help his career more? From your mouth to God's ears, Eric.
Yeah, that's for sure. Yeah, no kidding.
Aaron Summers. Hogan won because he was Hogan, never wanting to put someone over unless it was 100% necessary. Paul Fraser. If not, Hogan, perhaps Warrior should have won, setting up WrestleMania 6. And Jay Hinchy, Royal Rumble 90 is one of my favorites as well. So thank you, everyone, for your comments, as always.
Yes,
keep them coming, and we'll always read them, no matter good or bad, long or short.
Mm-hmm.
Or short. There goes
Short.
my accent kicking in.
No, what I was just going to say was we didn't mention where you can see these matches, and really none of the matches here are on a DVD other than the anthology. However, if you got, for those that have the that got the Hulk Hogan anthology DVD, I talked about this on my old radio show. There were 3 copies. There were 3 versions of that DVD, the Hulk Hogan anthology, not the Hulk Still Rules one, the one that came out. I don't know when it was. 08, I guess, or 07. I don't know. It was the Hulk Hogan anthology, the 3-disc that has all the matches. There were 3 versions of that set. The one that you got on the website, if you ordered it off of WWE Shop, that one just had 3 discs. But there were 2 variants that actually have a 4th disc. And let me sure if I get this right. The one you bought at Best Buy had a 4th disc of matches. And one of the things on that disc is the part of this Rumble once he's in it. It's not the whole Rumble match. It's just the part of the Rumble after he enters. And if you got the one at Walmart, the 4th disc was, I think, episodes of Hogan Knows Best. Like anybody wanted that. So, just as a side note. So, in terms of matches from this show that are on DVD, other than the actual Royal Rumble anthology, the part of this Rumble, the Rumble match, after Hogan enters, is on the 4th bonus disc of the Hulk Hogan Anthology DVD, if you got the version at Best Buy. The Best Buy version had the extra disc of matches. The Walmart version, the 4th disc was episode. I think it was like 2 episodes of Hogan Knows Best. I think one of them was the one when he was at the Hall of Fame. And if you got the one on the, if you got it off of WWEshop.com, then you only got 3 discs. So anyway, other than the anthology, you really don't see none of these matches are on any separate DVDs.
Right.
So.
One last thing I did want to mention about the show. It's actually Tony Schiavone's final WWF pay-per-view commentating. So
yeah, I don't know how long he sticks around.
I think it's right before Mania. He's on that much beloved show of mine, The Primetime. He announces there. I'm sure that was pre-taped for a while, but I'm pretty sure by 6 he's pretty much gone.
Yeah, I think he shows up at, I want to say he's at the 90 Great American Bash with JR, I think, doing commentary.
And of course, he would remain with WCW until they close up shop in 2001. And then he'd make a brief appearance in TNA, and then he started doing stuff for the Braves and a lot of local sports stuff.
And the Hawks.
And the Hawks, down in Atlanta. He actually, there was rumor that they wanted to bring him in 2003 to replace JR on Raw, but Kevin Dunn shot it down. That's kind of a rumor I've seen floating out there, so I don't know how legit that is or not.
Yeah. I don't know why when they brought in Styles at Taboo Tuesday 05. I always get confused, 0405. Taboo Tuesday 05. The only other guy that was mentioned as a rumor to JR was the UFC guy, Mike Goldberg?
Yeah.
That was it. I'm surprised they didn't ask Tony then either. Maybe because by then he was out of the wrestling loop at that point. I don't know. But his name never came up.
It might have internally. I mean, in 03, it looks like Kevin Dunn was the one that nixed it. So maybe they didn't even bother bringing it up again at that point.
Yeah.
And Joey was probably a better fit anyway for the product at that time. But
yeah, exactly. But I would have liked to see Tony come back. I know a lot of people can't stand him, but
no, I've always really liked Tony. I've always been a Tony fan. Up until about like 99-ish, when WCW was really on his deathbed. By late 99 is when he really started to get bad, where you could tell he was just cashing the checks and didn't care. But he was actually really good in those mid-90s, really helping get over the WWF, the NWO stuff and all that. So,
if anything, the guy who probably and once we get to the start of the Monday Night Wars, we'll probably say this often. But unfortunately, the guy that probably really soured people on Tony was Bischoff.
Yeah.
Bischoff pretty much ruined Tony because obviously he made him say things, and obviously the infamous one was the Mick Foley butts in the seats comment.
Right.
That pretty much ruined Tony's rep, and it was fucking Bischoff's fault. So
no, yeah, it's too bad because I think Tony does deserve to be better remembered, especially watching a lot of these early NWA stuff too. He was really good.
He was very good.
And he just knew how to tell the stories. He knew his stuff, and he actually knew a lot more of the wrestling holds and moves than he let on sometimes. But he knew how to tell a good story, and he was a unique voice for WCW in the '90s. So I was glad that he did end up having a pretty good run. So.
Yeah, he was He's from upstate New York. A lot of people think he's from the South. He's not. Obviously, he doesn't have a very thick Southern accent. So he was a good change of pace from the Caudles and the JRs and those early late '80s, early '90s. Obviously, Tenay is not Southern, and Bobby really isn't either.
Yeah, I mean he's definitely up there for me as far as play-by-play guys. Gorilla's my favorite. Vintage Vince I always like, even though a lot of people hate him. JR obviously, and then and Schiavone. Those are my top 4 guys.
I didn't hate Vintage Vince in the '80s with Jesse. I didn't like Vintage Vince in the mid '90s.
I liked him in the '90s too, but we'll get to that as we move along.
But anyway, what we're saying is this is it for Schiavone in the WWE. FE.
Just 1 year run. So
yeah, you won't see him again.
All right, so let's start wrapping up things. Next week we're going to be back with a headline show. It'll probably be our last true headline show for a while. Now that the playoffs are ended, we're going to talk about that. Maybe we'll get into a little bit of draft stuff since that'll be going on next week. And then we're going to come back with our Mega WrestleMania 6 podcast review.
Yes.
That should be a lot of fun. And then the week after that, we should be having our interview with Eddie Edwards. So we'll be putting up a thread as we get closer to get some questions for him. So we're really looking forward to that as well. So
yeah, we want your input on this. We want it's almost like a pseudo In fact, maybe we'll treat it almost like an interactive. Podcast where you, the listeners, give us the questions and we'll say them like that on the podcast.
Yeah, definitely.
So and so has a question he wants to know. So we'll think about that. We'll get more into that next week, but we want to kind of get all of our listeners kind of get their minds racing on what they want us to ask him. So
so with that, we'll leave you for another week. We hope you enjoyed Royal Rumble 1990, and we'll come back to you twice next week, headlines and WrestleMania. So until then, Place to Be Nation. Have a great weekend.
Peace.